this meeting. Please could you ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members who are virtually viewing this meeting could raise your electronic hand, and for members in the chamber, just raise your hand. For the purpose of declarations, I would like to confirm that we will be scrutinising items 7, 8 and 12 of the Cabinet papers today. Knowing that fact, we'll move to item 2. Are there any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Rob Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Item 12, page 86 on the Cabinet papers. I have a personal interest. I'm a former trustee of Talbot Community Library.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Sean Percy, please.
Yeah, likewise, in item 12, I'm a trustee of Talbot Community Library.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Are there any other declarations of interest, please? Okay. If I'd like to bring Craig in, please, for this.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few reminders from your members. If you are a trustee or you're involved in any of the organisations listed in the third sector grant report, which is item 12 on the agenda, could I ask if you just declare your interest? You have a personal interest as the Standards Committee have granted you a dispensation to be able to speak and vote on these matters, but just to make sure that we can capture it for the record. So can that include Cabinet members as well, please?
Did you say on item 8 then? That's the bus tendering.
The third sector grant report.
Item 12. Item 12. Leader, please.
Yeah, I'll be declaring an interest on item 6, sorry, Craig, but they're not scrutinising that, are they? So item 12, I don't think I have an interest on that one. Sorry, Chair.
No problem, Leader. Councillor Scott Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to declare a personal interest as a trustee under agenda item 12, award of grants. I'm a trustee of AVCL, which has got a connection with Cummer Swimming Pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Simon Noyle, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm a board member of the Neath Training Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noyle. Are there any others, please?
Yeah, item 12. Yeah, okay. Yeah, item 12, I'm chair of Fringe Crenant, which is in the third sector applications.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Griffiths, please.
Item 12, I'm a member of the Bulldogs, and it comes under my forces champion.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Are there any other declarations before we move on?
Yes, Chair, I'm the same. I'm Councillor Wyndham Griffiths.
Who's that,
Forces
please?
champion. It's Councillor Bowen.
Councillor Bowen, yeah. Sorry, couldn't see your hand, Councillor. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, we have all those. Thank you very much. Moving along to item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes are attached at page 5 to 16 of the agenda. We're going to take both of the sets of minutes together. Are there any questions or queries on the minutes, please? I can't see any indication, so we'll move along. It says, if you feel these are accurate record of the meetings, I'm happy to propose them. Can I have a seconder, please? Anyone like to second the minutes? Who's that, please?
Councillor Henton.
Thank you, Councillor Henton. Thank you.
I can confirm those minutes are approved.
Thank you, Pam. Moving along to agenda item 4, pre-decision scrutiny. As stated before, we are moving to the Cabinet Board agenda and we're scrutinising 7, 8 and 12. Okay. Agenda item 7, the Audit Wales Springing Forward Strategic Workforce Management for Neath and Talbot Council. These are on pages 21 to 42 of the report. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sheena. Moving along next to members' questions. I have an indication initially from Councillor Rob Jones, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's in relation to page 33, paragraph 24, recruitment and retention. There's something that jumped out in that particular paragraph to me from Audit Wales, and I quote, it is our view that the Council's current strategic risk rating of medium for recruitment and retention does not adequately reflect the residual risk it faces due to the delays in developing succession plans across, it goes on to the next page, across services and identifying business critical roles. This report was actually done in November 23. My question, therefore, is, has that change in the risk register been reflected and moved to the higher level? And what is going to be done apart from what the report already says in this short period of time that we've had since the publication and delivery of the report to address that situation? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Can I bring Sheena back in, please?
Yes, of course. So, Councillor Jones, the strategic risk register is currently being reviewed at the moment. So that will be going to CDG. I think it's next week, or certainly in coming weeks, for sign off. So we'll be picking up that issue in relation to succession plans as part of that process. In terms of what we're doing to increase the numbers of accountable managers and services that have a succession plan in place with identified business critical positions, there's quite a number of actions. So I'll summarise them. 72 managers attended succession planning workshops in the last calendar year, and we've now embedded that workshop as part of our core development programme for managers. So we will be seeing that as part of the core skills that every manager needs to have across the council. We're also reviewing the toolkit that we use for succession planning to try and make it as easy as possible for our accountable managers. So we're going to try and digitalise it, working with digital services to do that. We've carried out an analysis of the succession plans that we've had. So we think if we can demonstrate that completing a succession plan has real benefit and that the information within it is acted upon, then we think we'll encourage people to actually put their succession plans in place. And it's also a feature of feedback to accountable managers. So I've been meeting with accountable managers to inform the next iteration of the delivery plan for the strategic workforce plan. And one of the things I have reflected back to them is that they are saying their key workforce priority is recruitment and retention. Well, I'm saying to them, the challenge for you then is to make sure that you have a succession plan in place, because that is, as Wales Audit have said, really integral when it comes to ensuring that we have our future workforce in place. Does that answer your question, Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Sheena. Councillor Jones, are you happy?
In part, it certainly puts the mechanisms there in place. My concern is, and I'm finding this, I'm sure other members are finding this, that when we are trying to contact senior members of the authority, we are finding that they've left the authority. They've either gone to pastures new, i.e. new careers, they've gone into the private sector as far as planning is concerned. Estates have lost key senior members of staff, and my concern is here we're losing the experience at the top end with these business critical officers, and we don't seem to be bringing them in a quick enough regime. And as these are business critical areas that Audit Wales pointed out, I have serious concerns that we're not recruiting as quickly as we're losing. And if they're business critical, then we surely need to be focusing on this area right across the whole of the authority. And they are my concerns, Chair. As I say, perhaps this is something I should take with Sheena, but I think we should all be aware that as business critical areas, we cannot afford to lose senior staff or any form of staff with experience and not backfill. So this is vital for the continued working of the council.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Sheena, would you like to come back in, or are we should
yeah,
we bear
so
that in mind?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to come back in, Chair, if that's okay with you. Just to say that I absolutely agree. It is really important that our managers are engaging with succession planning, and that they have a succession plan in place, and that they are identifying their business critical roles. That is something that I'm talking a lot about, Councillor Jones. So there's no disagreement from me in that. In terms of our recruitment efforts, so we have increased our successful appointment rate to 93% from 82% 2 years ago. So we are more successful at recruitment. Our recruitment activity has increased by 40%. So not only are we doing more, we are also better at what we are doing. And our turnover rate is a positive turnover rate. So we are recruiting more people than we are losing. Now, I accept that there still remain some posts that are hard to fill, and particularly in some specialist areas, and particularly in parts of environment. But it's certainly not an across the board thing. So I wanted to give you some assurance of that. That we are doing absolutely what we can in terms of recruitment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sheena. If I could bring Karen, our Chief Executive, in, please.
So just really to say, it is a very important area of work. And I think we've been saying since the pandemic that we are operating in a very tight labour market, and there are problems in recruiting into some vacancies. And there are a range of things, as Sheena said there, that we are doing about it. So the only other thing I wanted to add to what Sheena said, Chair, is there is quite a lot of workforce information that we are now able to generate, which is being shared with the Personnel Committee, I believe, Sheena. So I think members have got some really good data to be able to track how we are progressing along this. But just to give an assurance, we are collectively all identifying this as a really important area for us to keep prioritising as we go forward.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, something we need to keep an eye on, I think. Councillor Jones, do you want to come back at this point?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't want to hog this because I can see there's others want to speak. But final point from me, another concern is, and it's really good to hear of the targets that are now being increased in relation to recruitment. But the second arm of recruitment is retention. And there's been no mention about that retention figure. And again, with the financial climate that we are moving towards, particularly towards the end of next month, the market, I'm afraid, is starting to be driven by supplements in relation to these hard to fill posts. And that's another area of concern that we should all be aware of in relation to the importance of not only recruiting, but retaining our members. And I leave it at there, Chair. Thanks both for the answers.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Point well made, I think, there. Thank you. Next up is Councillor Suzanne Patterson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't have a question until Councillor Jones mentioned something, so I am grateful for you calling me in. It is in regard to market supplements. My colleague Matthew Crowley has been looking into this, and we need to be careful it doesn't cost us too much to retain staff, and I think Councillor Jones has hit the nail on the head there. We need to keep an eye on the retention of staff, but what do you do if people have got a better offer somewhere else? It's going to be hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Could Sheena come back in on this one, please?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Patterson. I think you make a really good point. So market supplements are a tool that we've got that we can use when we need to. But when it comes to the pay and remuneration package, we have to recognise that pay is only one part of it. So there can be a tendency to compare ourselves to, for instance, private sector employers who offer significantly higher salaries. But if you look at their employment package in the round, it doesn't compare with the rest of our employment package. So that's what we try and encourage from our accountable managers and heads of service is that they don't just focus on pay, they look at the rounder package that we're able to offer. So things like our annual leave, our sick pay benefits, the local government pension, the range of family-friendly, flexible working policies. I know for an absolute fact that people will come and work for us because of our hybrid, flexible, agile approach. That is a real draw at the minute. So the more competitive we can be in other aspects of our pay package, actually that enables us not always to be focusing on pay. Being able to offer market rates of pay is important, however. So when we apply a market pay supplement, we are saying we've exhausted everything else. We've looked at everything else. But one thing we are going to be doing in the year ahead is actually reviewing our market pay supplement scheme. So to make sure that's fit for purpose, it hasn't been reviewed since I think it's 2009 now when we introduced job evaluation. It is time for an overhaul. So we need to make sure that is doing what it needs to do. And enabling the council to be competitive when it needs to be competitive.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sheena.
Chair.
Very clear. Can I bring Andrew Jarrett in at this point, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Councillor Patterson, for the question. And I think probably in social services we use the market supplement probably more than the rest of the council, and I think that served us really well. You will have known that we added a market supplement a few years ago. That saved us losing probably 20 to 25 social workers. And that means not just losing the experience and having them to backfill, but actually losing people who understand how we work in Neath Talbot. So it's really important that we retain those staff rather than go elsewhere to other local authorities, other agencies, etc. That's always under review for us, but actually it's probably cheaper than us losing people and then having to backfill with agency, because actually recruiting social work is very difficult at the moment.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Patterson, would you like to add anything else?
Just to say thank you for the comprehensive answers. I know it's a tough job. I'm sure we will get through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Are there any other questions on this particular item, please? I can't see any indications. So the recommendations are listed on page 24 of the Cabinet agenda. I'm happy to propose them. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Okay. Can members please indicate if they wish to abstain?
I can see no abstentions, Chair.
Thank you, Pam. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
Chair, I can see no indications to the contrary, so this recommendation is supported to Cabinet.
Many thanks all. Thank you, Pam. Moving on, agenda item 8. This is the local bus tendering, which is on pages 43 to 54. Officers, would you like to add anything additional to the report?
Just to mention, Chair, that members will obviously be aware of a really challenging time that we've had over the last 12 months with the bus emergency scheme. It's been a very volatile time, but we're really pleased to be in a position that we've been able to award 42 contracts. As a council within the region, we're now in a very unique position in that we used to have mostly commercial services, but the whole bus market has been flipped on its head. We're now letting 42 contracts as a council that we will now be responsible for, and that there are only 3 commercial services. So Brendan has been working really hard to secure the contracts that we have, and we're pleased to bring the report before you today, which is I feel is a very positive report and outcome for the council at this time.
Many thanks,
Thank
David.
you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move to members' questions. I'm going to kick this one off. First off, David, I know you and Brendan have worked extremely hard on this, and you can't underestimate the thanks we have for all the work you've done in turning this round to such a positive thing. The only thing I've got to ask is, have we used up all the budget that's been allocated from the new fund that we're getting? And if not, is there any room for reinstating some of the routes that have not been reinstated up to now? Thank you.
Okay. So thank you, Chair. In the most, we've been able to reinstate bus services that were cut last October. There has been an underspending in year since October because there's been reduced mileage. That's resulted in £200,000 being available. In addition to the position we are in currently. So Welsh Government have just agreed that that funding can be retained for use going forward. We are aware. Well, firstly, the network's not ideal. We've let the contracts, and we've got a retained network, but we recognise that there are still shortcomings there. And indeed, of 3 of the commercial services, we've been made aware that some of the elements of those commercial services have not been registered. So we're immediately aware of some parts of the network that we need to deal with. So the Cabinet will remember that just prior to Christmas, I brought a report which gave us permission to award de minimis contracts. We'll be keeping a close eye now with a view to trying to backfill any emerging gaps, as I mentioned, in the commercial service. But moreover, we'd like to move into the next stage now, where we're in early discussions around the franchising of the bus network. But we'd like to think that we'd be able to potentially have earlier services and later services to allow people to get to shift work. So we'll be monitoring that, but we will be hoping to use that funding that's been carried forward to support those parts of the network.
Many thanks, David. That's excellent news. Yeah, and I know, speaking to a lot of people around, that I think as a council we're ahead of the game compared to a lot more locally. So I say I know you're only a small team, but my thanks to you again. Next up is Councillor Sean Percy, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Da iawn to Brendan and team as well for the work they've done on this exercise. I emailed Brendan the other day. I was a little bit surprised that we'd managed to get some of those services back, and I think that was a little bit surprising given how challenging the funding position's been. So I've got 2 questions now. My question I had was just around the staffing capacity and capacity of the team, which is kind of mentioned in the report. Obviously, we've had to undertake this task at a scale that we've not had to do previously. I was wondering whether we'd had any certainty as to what the framework would look like as we head towards franchising, because obviously when we get to that point, there's going to be some sort of capacity in Transport for Wales Welsh Government. There's going to be some sort of regional arrangement and some sort of local arrangement, and I'm wondering if we actually understand what that looks like yet in terms of how we plan the staffing requirement. And just a second question, if I may, Chair, just in relation to the response you've just had. Obviously it's quite welcome that there maybe is a bit of flexibility and a bit of headroom at the moment in terms of that £200,000 underspend on bus services. I just wondered if David, you could clarify a little bit more about what you meant around some of the commercial services that hadn't been registered, and what impact that might have in the meantime before we fill any gaps that might emerge. Diolch.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. David, if you'd like to come back in.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Percy. If I may start with perhaps the Transport for Wales regional, local sort of interventions. Transport for Wales now have there's some really good detailed work and data starting to emerge from the piece of work that they've done nationally, but locally as well. In that respect, they've basically reviewed the whole network. They've been able to identify pinch points on the network where we need to improve journey time on the services, and that will lead to infrastructure improvements on the network, I'm hopeful. And there are a number identified in Neath to Talbot. We'll also be going live during the course of next year with real-time passenger information within NPT. And fortunately, we've been very in another unique position, more by luck this time, in that the provider that's won the national contract recently with TfW is one that we already commission for our timetabling, and it's one and the same. So they're telling they're telling us here at Neath Patrol, but when it goes live, it's a matter of flicking a switch, and we'll be able to have that real-time information in advance of many other parts of Wales and the region. So that, as I say, that was a stroke of luck. So it's just fortunate that we procured that company when we went through our procurement exercise a couple of years ago. So the data analysis from the TfW work will be shared with the franchising team and with the region and with our team locally. They've already, Brendan's already attended some regional scrums, they call them, on franchising, where we're beginning now to look at that network and how it could be structured. The Welsh Government haven't actually confirmed the full detail of the franchising areas, but there are likely to be 9 areas within Wales, and Neath Talbot will fall under mid-south. So it's highly likely that as a franchise area, we will be in the middle with Swansea and Bridgend County Borough Council, which sort of makes a lot of common sense, really, in terms of our travel to work patterns. But of course, we won't be sitting in the Southwest regional footprint. But I think that's going to be the case across a number of parts of Wales in that respect. So some really good work is emerging on that front, Councillor Percy. In terms of our internal team, obviously it is a very small team. Effectively, for local bus, we've only got Brendan and Rachel that works 2 days a week supporting Brendan. And the transition we've gone now to become responsible for 42 contracts means that we are now as a team going to be responsible for scheduling, timetabling, any complaint that's made about the service Brendan and Rachel will need to deal with. But moreover, Brendan's also got responsibility for home to school transport, ALN transport, community, our own community transport, internal team, and of course he works very closely with the third sector, namely Dancer and NPT Shop Mobility. So we talked about earlier in this meeting about sustainability of services. Brendan's role is has been identified as a business critical role, which we are aware of, and of course we've got a succession plan. But with this change that's coming from April the 1st, and the quantum of work that's going to be emerging from the franchising arrangement and the passenger transport review that's been undertaken in education, we need to expand the team. So I will be over the next 6 weeks going through a management of change. My initial thoughts are that we will need to create 2 new posts, but that would only mean 1 additional new person to the team, which would be, we believe, at around about a grade 5. But there will be some minor changes within the team to make it more sustainable and more resilient, particularly around local bus. So I will be bringing that management of change proposal forward in the usual in the agreed way that we're to table those management structural changes to the department. So I'm sorry, I was a bit of a long explanation, but hopefully I've answered your queries there, Councillor Percy.
Thank you, David. That's quite encouraging, to be honest. Councillor Percy, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, no, I appreciate the answer around the staffing. Just some clarity on that, the commercial services that you said.
Oh, yes.
That was the second question, Diolch.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
So one of the commercial services, and Brendan will remind me of the service, but it's a key service. It runs from Swansea and through into Neath, Talbot, and indeed to the hospital. We've noticed that the commercial operator has dropped off one of our nearby communities there through Baglan, which we've got the data of passengers travelling on that, and we're currently in dialogue with another operator to see if we can pick that element of the route up as part of another contract. And of course, we are potentially considering an enhancement in terms of the timetable to see if we can get actually that service to become commercial as well. But it's very early days. Our intention is now to, if we can secure that, we'll do it through a de minimis award to make sure that where we've had bus services previously, that we retain them. Bren, is there anything you'd like to add on that point?
Dave, just to add then that I think we've identified for a while now that we need an improved service really between Swansea and Neath Talbot Hospital, because a lot of Swansea residents are now attending the hospital. So it was something that we considered during tender, but we decided not to go down that road at the time because we weren't sure of the funding. Now, it seems that the operators have latched onto this as well and have registered more services to Neath Talbot Hospital at the detriment of our local network. So, like Dave said, we are looking at plugging that gap at the moment.
Thank you, Brendan. Councillor Percy, would you like to come back?
Yeah, only just for clarity that where there is an existing service now, are we expecting that post-April, when these changes go through, that there isn't going to be a gap in, let's say, Baglan, that we then going to fill? Or are we aiming for a seamless transition between what's currently proposed and what will be in place, if you catch my drift? I'm just trying to understand if we're going to have a gap in service while we work on a new contract.
Thank you, David.
I'm just wondering, Bren, obviously Bren's in discussion with an operator that only today is considering that position. Bren, would it impact in a gap in service, or do you think we'll be able to get it implemented from 1st of April?
It all depends on whether the traffic commissioner will accept the short-term notice, because obviously First Cymru, the operator that's changed the route, has given the traffic commissioner 56 days notice, which has meant that we have less time to respond to that now. So with a bit of luck, we might be able to get this as a seamless service change. But also, potentially, if the traffic commissioner does not accept the short-term notice, then we may have a break in service.
Thank you, Brendan. I think that's clear. You're happy with that, Councillor Percy? Yep.
Yeah, happy. Deal.
Thank you, Councillor Percy. Next up, please, is Councillor Suzanne Patterson, please.
Oh, thanks again, Chair, because as I say, this question wasn't on my mind at the beginning. It's the conversation that's been had. It just goes to show, it's a comment really, it just goes to show the difficulty of succession planning when the departments can become so small, and in extra to that, there could be a lot of discrepancy between grades for the manager, the one manager that's there, and then any other staff that are in that. So it's very difficult. And I know a lot of managerial skills are interchangeable, but it is always best, I would have thought, to have somebody that's been working in the department if you're going to promote somebody or have succession planning for a manager. I'm just highlighting how difficult it can be when departments have been withdrawn down to very small numbers. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Yeah, we have noted, and I think everyone's in agreement that small departments do have difficulty in planning things for the future. I think that everyone's trying their best, I think, and reacting to the Audit Wales report, really. Thank you very much for that. Moving along. I can get to the right page, that is. That one, that item is for noting, okay? Next up is back to the Cabinet Scrutiny agenda, which is item 5, the committee action log on pages 17 to 18. This is just for noting. Does any members have any points they'd like to make on the committee action log, please? I can't see any indications. We'll move along to agenda item 6. The forward work programme, which is on pages 19 to 20. Again, this is just for noting. Are there any queries or questions or points on this particular item, please? Again, no indications. Thank you very much. Agenda item 7, urgent items. You'll be pleased to hear that there are no urgent items. Agenda item 8, this is access to meetings. This is to resolve to exclude the public from the following items pursuant to section 100A, part 4 and 5 of the Local Government Act 1972 and the relevant exempt paragraphs of part 4 of schedule 12A to the above act. I propose, can I please have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. That moves us along to agenda item 9, pre-decision scrutiny of private items.